The Green Party has pledged to raise taxes on the UK's top earners. They want to raise national insurance by 8% on wages above £50,270. It means that if you're earning, let's say, £55,000, you would pay an extra £283 a year in tax. And they want to use this money to transform housing, transport and the green economy, and say that the plans would generate £70 billion a year to mend broken Britain. Carole, is that fair?
No. And you know, the Greens used to be a party about, you know, bees and trees and looking after the environment. It's not anymore. Now it's a hard left activist party, and I think, you know, this business about I mean, we'll talk about some of their policies in a minute. But you know, many OECD countries have tried this wealth tax and have had to repeal it. Countries like Luxembourg, France, Iceland, Finland, Denmark, they all employed it and they all had to reverse it within a couple of years because they discovered that it took more to administrate than the revenue it raised.
And also in France, people just left.
Well, exactly. So people left or they stayed, but they had to repeal it in the end anyway because it wasn't working. So it doesn't work, and here they are. You know, but the Greens have got four employing policies that don't work. You know, one of their policies now, and this will interest you, Storm, that they're promoting natural childbirth. They want it to be a medical-free experience, and they're advocating fewer and fewer caesareans. Now, you know, with this mindset, this is what happened to the people in the Shrewsbury and Telford Trust, where 200 babies died and 12 mums died. So they're advocating policies that are not only disproven but incredibly dangerous. And I just think, you know, this party is, well, it's all got a terrible. 20 candidates that they wanted to put in seats are currently being investigated for anti-Semitic remarks, terrible remarks, comparing Zionism to cancer and saying that Israel planned this October.
I think their response to that is that they are taking the course of action they are required to, and also that they are being put in this position because the election, it was such a short period of time in order to recruit their candidates. But that is their response.
Apart from the anti-Semitic, also 4 more have had to leave after pressure because of stuff that they've said, nasty racist stuff that they've said. So this is a nasty party now. This is a party that spouts bile, and we have to be, you know, elections are probably the only time we look at weird parties like the Greens and we look at them properly. And reform, we have to look at them properly, exactly. But, well, you know, reform are surging in the polls,
You're doing really well.
Yeah,
continue, sorry.
Reform are surging in the polls. The Greens are not. Anyway, that's me.
Well, Marvy, you did very well to hold your tongue the whole way through that, because
really
I saw your face changing and you jumped in just at the end.
There was so much going on. You made the Green Party sound like a terrorist party that we need to be watching over our back.
Yeah,
as a party, and their evolution is to broaden their scope beyond just energy and environment. And I think there's a really good conversation to be had about what the contribution of tax is from the richest in this country. I think 50,000 is a threshold that's way too low. I think 8% is a lot of money at that particular level. But when you're talking about people who are earning 6 figures, 150,000, people who are trading assets over a certain value, over $1 million, I think looking at those particular opportunities and seeing how that actually correlates, the HMRC is completely underfunded and they struggle to reclaim as much money as they need to and investigate money laundering and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's a massive problem in itself. And I know Labour have a policy in place where they're trying to reform and claw some of that money back. And I think that's an appropriate look at it. I do think everyone's going to have to pay just a little bit more tax because we're just that bad of a situation.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but the idea is that you think the policy in general is quite a good idea. You think 50,000 might be a little too low, and you would look at increasing that to maybe 150, 100,000.
I think from 100,000 onwards, you can look at reform of those policies. But to be honest, because of the level of cost of living crisis, even at 100,000, you're not in the clear. And as mad as that must seem to people at home who are not on that much amount of money, but it's so expensive living in London, like the amount of things you have to cover. It just is, I feel like we're in a bigger problem than we realise. And I don't think Labour's going to get away with just sweeping everything into a nice bowl and presenting it back to the world. We need real reform.
People see a policy like this as the politics of envy. And I've just read out to you the countries that are trying to employ this tax with probably the best of reasons and have had to now withdraw.
Okay,
but those economies are very, very different, though. They're not the same.
If you're going to increase the revenue and you're not going to tax the highest earners,
Who would
What
you
are
like
you
to
going
tax?
to do?
We are taxing the highest earners, and the thing is, you know, there's a snottiness and a snittiness about people who earn a lot of money in this country, forgetting that it is the wealthy who pay a huge majority for the services in this country.
No, trickle-down economics doesn't work, and it never has worked.
It absolutely,
it never does.
But it does.
Most
and
people
do you
operate
seriously want
in
to
tax
chase
avoidance.
away the seriously rich in this country?
Nobody's
at
leaving
this
Britain for a tax raise of 2 to 3 to 4%. This is not the margins that we're talking
Well,
about.
you don't know what they're talking about.
Because I'm a wealth creator myself,
you don't know
I
what
run a
they're-
business and I hire people, and I'm prepared to pay
They're
whatever
talking
they're
about, what was the
additional.
figure, Storm?
But I do think it's
Well, it's
super
1%
important.
if you have assets over 10 million. And
I think
2%
that's an
if you
acceptable
have,
amount.
Well, so that's £10,000 a
Yes.
year you would be taxed if you had for a million.
Yes.
And for 1 billion, this is astronomical. I did the calculations because once it gets to a million, my brain just goes to mush. I don't understand
it's more
those
than we have.
numbers. So I had to look it up. And it's
Carole has it,
20
though.
million. If you're a billionaire, one singular billionaire, you would have to pay 20 million in tax a year, according to the
But people
Green
don't
Party.
understand how much a billion is. That doesn't even touch
against
the
that.
sides of a billion.
I think when you're that wealthy, you're not going to miss 20 million a year. I think that's for sure. But
I'd love to meet the person that wouldn't miss 20 million. That is
a billionaire.
A billionaire.
Bill Gates.
That's incredible. I'd like to meet
I'd
him.
love to say Bill Gates. We've got a
just-
couple ourselves here
Just
in
a word
Britain.
on some of the tax suggestions from other parties. Labour has ruled out any rises in income tax and in national insurance if it wins the election. Rishi Sunak unveiled an election manifesto packed with 17 billion of tax cuts on Tuesday, including the abolition of national insurance for almost every self-employed worker. Lib Dem leader Ed Davies has already ruled out any increase in income tax, national insurance or VAT. Reform UK would introduce a migrant tax, forcing employers to pay higher national insurance rates for foreign workers. What's interesting, though, is that, you know, you've got certain parties claiming that they won't be increasing tax, and yet they seem to be telling us all about what they're spending.
Do you mean Labour?
Well, no. Labour and the Conservative Party saying that they won't increase certain taxes, but maybe the Green Party here are actually just being incredibly
Realistic.
honest with what, because that's
they're
their
not.
claim. They're the only party that's being honest about the amount of money that has to be raised and the realistic
This party,
policies that have to go into that.
If you look around the country at the places where they're in charge of local councils, take, for instance, Brighton they're in charge of. Brighton has lost £1 million over the past 3 years in the council because the Greens increased parking because they hate cars and they hate fumes.
Every council is in trouble, and Brighton is amazing.
Let me finish my point. and they've lost all of this money. Tourists are staying away because they can't afford to come and park there. So this is how they're
I was there 2 weeks ago.
economics work. They're flawed. This is the party that completely, it's totally in support of uncontrolled immigration, and yet it opposes housing policies and housing developments. And I find it ironic that they're saying now that they support housing. No, they don't. This is the party that wants.
Well, social
last
housing
year,
is what they've brought.
advocated free school meals for all children, even the rich ones. How does that square with this silly
The
wealth
children.
tax?
But the thing
What
is,
is
I
a
think
billionaire? A billionaire, Marvin, needs the free school meals.
Yes, because they're children, so it's important to feed the children.
Yes, and a
equitable.
billionaire can afford to do that.
I think the
But
idea behind it is
billionaires are
it's
not
an
going to
equaliser.
schools with public school children in like a council estate area. It's not going to happen, is it? So it's a completely different economy in
But
terms of what it is that they're
you
doing.
take the point. Hold on. I mean, we're getting
You
sidetracked here, but you
believe
take the point
billionaires are
that
sending
actually.
their schools to like Hackney schools?
Well, no. I mean, some billionaires do send their children to state school, but that's not the point. There's still people in state school with children in state school with parents who wouldn't necessarily need
a
that to
free
be
school
paid for
meal,
them.
exactly.
But the idea is it's an
The
equaliser.
greater point around the Greens is they're starting a really important conversation because every single other party, in terms of talking about tax, are not speaking about how we're actually going to raise enough tax for what is needed for the reform of this country, and they are. And so I think it's a great conversation to add. I don't agree with the £50,000 threshold.
OK, let's go to the calls. Sorry, Carole. Brenda from Leicestershire, what's your view when it comes to increasing, it's actually national insurance by 8% for those who are earning over £50,000?
Of course, and the others, of course. People don't realise money is a drug. You work hard, right, whether you're rich or poor. You work hard, you pay tax. You work hard, you're forced on benefits. You can't take any more off the poor. And I'm telling you now, you're not going to get them working for nothing. But that's another
Brenda,
side of it.
So two things. Part of the criticism of this is that those on £50,000, a lot of people, and if you fall into that threshold, I'd love to hear from you and what impact this would have on your finances, because a lot of these people are incredibly affected by the cost of living crisis, because although they are earning far more than the average, their bills are far higher than the average as well. And so those bills have gone up by the same rate. And so it's kind of, could it be, Chris?
They're going to be upset. A lot of people who are paying tax, they want to pay more tax. They're the ones that understand and they aren't greedy. But the others, they don't realise they're paying tax because they've gone over a certain amount. The same as, even though everybody works hard, the poor work hard as much as the others, you know, and they're on benefits. You've got to make these people that don't understand that they're paying taxes because they've gone above a certain amount, that they have got to pay more out now. I mean, it's the only way.
But Carole would say they do already pay more tax, but I take your point. They think they should pay even more. Brenda, thank you very much for your call. Helen from Dorset, do you think this is a good idea by the Greens? Do you think they're being honest about about the amount of tax that needs to be raised?
No, I don't think they are. I don't trust them. I think they're ridiculous.
Okay, and there's quite a lot there already, Helen. What makes you not trust them? Because they haven't really been given any power to make you distrust them. And what policy do you think is particularly ridiculous?
I think this policy of paying more tax. I mean, people already pay tax.
But this would just be for the wealthiest in society.
No, why? And how can you quantify the wealthiest? The wealthiest, if they take into account where you live and what your property is worth, they're not being fair.
Okay, so you think this would be an unfair tax?
£50,000 a year, and even Marvin said this. In a city like London, £50,000 does not make you wealthy.
Not everybody lives in London.
No, but lots of people live in big cities. Lots of people live in big cities. Now, what is the average? I think it's about 30 odd grand a year.
Yes.
So 50 grand is not way above the average.
I actually wonder if you're on 30 grand a year, I suppose you aspire to earning something like £50,000 a year. I do wonder how popular this would be. That's why we'd love to hear from you. Neil thank you, Helen, for your call. Neil from Blackpool, do you think that this will be a popular policy?
I just don't understand why Carole can justify not taxing the rich when billionaires are doubling the wealth every few years.
When did I say don't tax the rich? I didn't say that at all.
How would you tax the rich?
I said that people who are millionaires and billionaires should be taxed more. I said that earlier, but I don't think 50 grand a year makes you rich.
Where would you start it?
Yeah, but you disagree with the gentleman when he's talking about people above 100,000. You just seem to be favouring don't tax the rich. Why do rich people need to get richer?
You just decided
Hold on, Neil. But you're right. Let's get to the bottom of it. You're absolutely right. So Marvin has said the idea of taxing the wealthiest in society is a pretty good model. Both of them agree that 1% for a millionaire, 2% for a billionaire seems kind of fair. Marvin, you said about 150 would be your threshold for increasing tax. What would yours be, Carole?
Maybe that. Maybe it's a bit more than that, because I think if you're earning that kind of money, you're incentivised to earn more. And I think if you start taking off at that stage from the people who are incentivised to earn more, well, why would you bother?
But
why do we want to
isn't it fair to
disincentivise
say,
people?
If somebody is earning over 150,000, they are driven by money. So even if they are making a penny more, they will still do that work and they will still do that.
I feel like the real issue is that people don't feel comfortable when the money is in the hands of the government, that it's being spent appropriately and wisely.
That's true.
And so that discomfort is that I'd rather have it myself and look after my family individually than go into the pot and then see money being wasted on PPE contracts and those types of things. So I think it's also the government's responsibility to be much more accountable with the money that we have. And we just haven't seen that in many, many years of government.
But Neil, did we clear that up for you then? It actually turns out our panel are in agreement on that, about 150,000.
How about taxing a billionaire who doubles his wealth in 3 years? Why don't we tax them at 80 or 90%?
You sound like you actually hate people who've done well, Neil.
I don't know. Why would a billionaire?
many.
Well, really do. The thing is, you don't get to be a billionaire by not working hard. It signifies a lot of hard work, and it seems like you resent people for working hard.
Yeah, but wealth creation at that level wasn't done in that way.
I do resent billionaires doubling the wealth after COVID.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it
money makes money. So once you get to a point, it does become easier, I think, to make the money. And that's obviously, Neil, the point you're trying to get to there. Thank you very much for your call and also for settling that point. That was very good. Thanks for all your calls on this.